Good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome. At the outset, I certainly want to be able to thank PMAP for creating this lovely opportunity and inviting me to discuss this topic of people and technology. I'll just very quickly start with a very brief introduction on who we are as People Strong. We're a technology firm, we are an HR technology firm which is focused on emerging markets. We are one of the most comprehensive, a full suite, hire to exit, a modern tech platform that currently very proudly services over 1 million employees across 300 plus customers that constitute of mid to large scale enterprises across the emerging markets of India, Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, Singapore, Vietnam, etc. We are one of the very few who have been solving the problem or the opportunity of building employee-centric organizations, bringing in more talent analytics for the business and HR leaders to be able to take more informed decisions with our deep investment in artificial intelligence and machine learning. We at this point in time are in a very high growth phase in Southeast Asia, and we believe we've hit critical mass at just the right time when local enterprises in Philippines are truly realizing the true potential of HR and work tech. We look at this as a very, very distinctive opportunity with a low penetration of just about 18% of HR tech in a market like Philippines. And it's certainly one of the fastest growing economies in this part of the world. And a very large employee asset base of more than 1 billion employees. That is what all of us as leaders from the business, HR, and the technology side have to engage and have to make truly more productive in helping us achieve our mission. How we've essentially been able to do that is to build a very agile and a personalized experience on our technology, which has helped us create several very successful transformation stories across the entire Southeast Asia as a region and have been growing rapidly from one market to another. We today very proudly service large customers and clients like the Tata Group, Minor Group, Inspiro, and the Ayala Corporation are some of the examples where People Strong is playing a key role. Our race to a 5 million employee base is not going to be led by us alone. We have our partners that will play a very, very integral role in delivering to this success and growth. Our partners are experts in people strategy and HR consulting, which complements our technology extremely well. One of our key partners in Philippines that aids us in achieving our growth is HCX Technology Partners, guided by its values of people centricity, excellence, and innovation. HCX is committed to delivering high quality, high powered technology solutions and services. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce a senior industry leader and a friend, Gavin Barfield, to our panel today. Gavin is the Managing Director of HCS Technology Partners and the Chief Information and Technology Integrator at Ayala Corporation. Gavin, welcome aboard, and I'll just request you to share a few words with the audience, please.
Thank you very much, Sandeep, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here today to engage in conversation around a topic which we're all passionate about, which is HR. As Sandeep said, I represent HCX Technology Partners. We are an Ayala company, and we specialize in predominantly HR technology. We were born really around 16 odd years ago to provide technology services, HR technology services to the Ayala Group. But over time, we've expanded that operation, and we now provide similar services outside the Ayala Group as well. And really, the idea is that we choose the right software that works for us within Ayala. We implement it with Ayala, and then we are happy to then take that good technology that we've implemented and those expertise and help other organizations outside of the group improve their human capital management. You know, I think, Sandeep, what a year and a half it's been, right, for HR technology and for HR in general. Nobody really could have predicted back in 2 years ago how we would be now with this pandemic, and how technology and HR technology particularly has come into into its own over the past year and a half, as we've all had to change to very, very different working styles, very different setups, very different ways of collaborating, very different ways of requesting information, very different ways of servicing ourselves when it comes to HR requests. And the last 20 odd months has seen a dramatic change. And we're very excited in HCX to be partnering with PeopleStrong, you know, one of the leaders in its field. We're implementing the technology in a number of IATA companies. Oh, okay. We're implementing it in a number of IATA companies at the moment, and we look forward to partnering with PeopleStrong in the future to take this technology out to other companies. So that's where we're at. I'll hand back to you, Sandeep.
No, thank you, Gavin. You've been a wonderful friend and, more importantly, a great guide, because we do believe that in current scenario, with the disruption that we've essentially seen just in the last 18 months, there is a lot which is evolving as a definition of work, workplace, and workforce. And HR technology is not just a tool or an environment or an infrastructure, but in many ways, I guess, in times to come, it is going to be a very, very logical and a tangible extension of an organizational culture of how you take it to engage with your employees, make them a lot more productive, and at the same time, empower them to doing exactly what you've got them to do for you. So thank you. And I don't think we would have been able to craft our growth story without the partnership and the guidance that we're receiving from you as an individual, and certainly a lot more from your other colleagues at HCX Technology Partners. Thank you. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'll very quickly just kind of set the context of what are we going to be really talking about and seeing as talent operating system. Like, why are we even calling it a talent operating system? The world has perhaps changed for the longer term, if not forever, in terms of how our workforce is aligned in the new normal and the way we need to view talent. In this new world, performance of an individual and performance of an organization are going to be far more tightly coupled. And here, all disintegrated elements of talent management will be self-paced and data-driven. Now, there is a lot of evidence that we've essentially seen over the last 18 months of how there is a lot that we have to integrate, and we need to change the way we currently identify and enrich and retain and manage our talent needs. We can't just look at hiring in isolation, learning in isolation, and the rest of the elements around performance and career planning and succession planning, etc., continue to operate in the silos. We wanted to really bridge the gap between people strategy and business outcomes with technology. And really, in a nutshell, we wanted you to have a better way to manage the employee journey through your organization in a way that you help your employees succeed as the business succeeds. It's really with this that I will request the coordinators here to play a very quick video on talent operating system, our AI-powered integrated talent management that will fundamentally give you the power to be the clairvoyant of talent in your enterprises. Thank you. Thank you. What we're really going to do is now actually get into the action part of this afternoon, when I'm going to very quickly introduce the three eminent panelists that we have with us. You've already met with Gavin. Just something that you won't know about Gavin: he came in to the region with a short 6-week assignment and has stayed on now for 20 years working in this colorful and a very, very dynamic region. Welcome, Gavin, and pleasure to have you on the panel.
Thank you very much.
The next panelist with us is Rizalyn Vargas. She's the HR director at a large enterprise, Telios International in Philippines. In this pandemic, she has found a new affair with Netflix and is into a lot of K-dramas, which I think is not new to Philippines. Welcome, Riza.
Thank you, Sandeep.
And here we've got a rich and a very experienced HR leader, Dan. He has worked with large enterprises like Amazon, PLDT, HSBC, IBM. And the reason I call him rich is because among the 4 of us here on the panel, he's the only one who has the luxury of owning 2 farms and spending his weekend in the solitude of the trees and some beautiful wildlife. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Sandeep. Good afternoon, everyone, and pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we have one lady. I'm grateful for that. And we've got 2 gentlemen. And, you know, every crisis, really, friends, has left us with one learning, which is only getting more and more ingrained and definitive as we look at the world shifting towards the new normal. It was, it is, and it will be to constantly look at people care as a very, very good part of our business. We know for a fact that organizations that manage their most valuable asset, people for the long term, come out stronger than their competitors, and that gap is almost impossible to bridge. We've seen that in many previous large crises that the economies in the world have gone through. The ones that stayed focused on taking care of their people were the ones to emerge stronger out of that crisis, and the COVID pandemic is going to be no different. It has tested our values, our purpose, our mission as business, as nations, all together. When we went around Asia, especially in markets like Philippines, asking business leaders what are their biggest worries and the biggest risks they anticipate in the next 3 years, amongst many other factors, one element where they were uncannily unanimous was their feedback on how do we harness talent and make that our biggest competitive advantage. So I guess repeatedly in literally every conversation with the business leader, it only gets reiterated that we're not here to manage people for the downturn. We are here to manage people for the long term. And with that, I guess I really want to be able to invite Gavin with our first question, and to jump in, Gavin, by taking the lead. How have you seen just in the last 18 months this entire element about people as a business driver play out in the most genuine of the manner? And it will be wonderful if you can actually illustrate this a little by examples, by talking about organizations that did that better than some other.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Sandeep. I mean, as I said, it's been an unprecedented time with the pandemic. I think what it has shown is that many companies really re-emphasizing the fact that people really are the biggest asset that they have, and the investment. What we're seeing now in the market is people really starting to look to invest in HR systems and look to upgrade their HR systems. That's the fundamental core and the platform for managing what, as I said, is your biggest asset in your organization, which is your people. I would challenge any organization that really says that the people are not the most important asset that they have within the organizations. You've seen with the pandemic a completely new way of having to engage with employees. The way that we were engaging with employees previously, the physical interactions that we had have now evolved into purely digital and virtual interactions. And what we've seen, to be honest, and particularly I'm talking in Ayala, Ayala Corp, is a complete hyper communication almost. People are worried, people are concerned. There is a need to get information out there, whether it's information on health, information on vaccines, information on back to work. People need a lot more information than what they previously.
Iurong mo yung bisikleta.
I'll just let the moderator mute. There we go. So previously, the way that these things occurred were physical face-to-face. We would have town halls, we would have physical meetings, but those weren't particularly frequent. And because those meetings were in person, sometimes the true feelings didn't come out, right? People can't put their hands up, stand up and speak. Now with modern technology, like what we're using now, we can communicate very quickly, very, very cheaply, and to a next level. I mean, you can post questions, people can post anonymously. You can really get to a higher depth of conversation. So what we've seen is an accelerated form of communication through these digital channels which they've brought in. Secondly, it's been a challenge, I guess, for many companies to be able to keep the energy and keep the motivation. So how have you been able to create a culture within your organization, particularly for new employees that are onboarding? How do you manage to get the new employees to buy into the company culture? How do you manage to get them to onboard successfully? And how do you get existing employees to remain energized and to remain motivated? Of course, what we've seen is traditional measures have been thrown out the window. I mean, one thing, you guys are in People Strong from HR background, critical to the module is time and attendance, fingerprint recognition or typing in or tapping in. All those things don't really matter anymore. Does it matter if I'm at my desk at 8:30 or if I'm at my desk at 6 o'clock? So what we're changing from a time-based way of managing resources to an outcome-based, where people have got that flexibility to be able to do it. And technology has evolved over the past 2 years, but I keep reminding people that none of this is new. Zoom didn't start last year. Teams didn't start last year. WebEx didn't start last year. They've been around for many, many years. Video conferencing, these sort of technologies have been around for many, many years. I'm not sure how old WebEx is, but it's certainly been around, WebEx and Skype, for as long as I can remember over the past 10 years. But the challenge was getting people to adopt it, and not just getting individuals to adopt it, but getting management to put enough trust into their employees that they can do it. Why are you not in the office today? Oh, I'm working from home. Why are you working from home? Why can't you come in the office? You must be skiving off. You must be doing something. You must have something going on. Oh, I need to be in because I'm just having a new refrigerator delivered. It's just 20 minutes. Well, okay, take the day's leave. Well, that's changed, right? No problem. Work from home, be flexible. If you need to pop out and do something for half an hour, as long as you get your deliverables done. So the technology has evolved, but what really has evolved in this pandemic is people's attitude and mindset. Management is more relaxed and more able to understand that people can be trusted and can more effectively work from home using this technology. And actually the technology works. And of course, I'm not an advocate of us staying like this forever. I know we're great to see people. I want to get back to the office as everybody, as much as everybody, and see people for real. But what this has shown is that the technology can be effectively used, and management can put trust in employees and can measure employees in a different way. And just a final point, we have seen people now really starting to look to putting money and investing in new HR solutions, particularly around learning management, performance management. As we've gone through this the last couple of years, I think people are now realizing that they have to invest in tools to educate people more. Technology is moving fast, skills need to evolve. So we're looking at a lot of electronic learning platforms and learning management solutions. And then, as I said, from performance management, if you're working from home, it's different than just saying, have you clocked in and clocked out? The measures and metrics you're using for performance are getting much more difficult and much more complicated. So a much more sophisticated solution is being used. And then finally, the ability to do the self-service and to delegate some of that work from HR to do day-to-day processing back to the user. So lots of evolutions have occurred, but it's a very interesting and exciting space as companies, both in the Ayala Group and outside, are now looking to upgrade and invest their technology for this next generation and the next new normal.
Well, thank you, Gavin. Thank you so much. Riza, on this question, if I can actually just ask you to jump in with a little bit of a twist, right? Gavin did speak a lot more about the adoption, the focus on output, creating that flexibility, making it a lot more personalized, looking at every individual as a unique entity rather than having one policy or process that will apply to the entire enterprise of a few thousands of people. Also, in my opinion, the post-pandemic debate that we're constantly having is a bit of a misleading debate. How are businesses that you have seen and your specific enterprise, which is very progressive, aligning itself for the permanent shift? And what kind of a permanent shift are we talking about here?
Yeah. So Sandeep, when we talk about, business drivers, yes, I certainly believe that people is one of them. So our people is the center of all these drivers as we expect and rely on them to deliver in all aspects of an organization's success. So in our current world today, with the new normal, as we say, is coming to play, there are both great opportunities and a balanced amount of challenges that we have to be mindful of. So there is a huge opportunity for us to be able to leverage and maximize our people today. One of which is for us to ensure that we are able to provide an improved employee performance. It's not just about providing them the tools to perform a job or giving them instructions how to do a task. But today, our people expect more from us. And what is very reasonable, this is a very reasonable ask. And from how we communicate their goals, how are they being evaluated, and how they are being guided in terms of development, how are they being provided with the right technologies to be able to perform their role, and most especially, how are they being supported in terms of all the aspects of the personal being, their engagement to their teams, to the organization, and to oneself. Their individual morale also is a factor, and the ability to feel that they are empowered individuals of the organization. So in this current time, communication seemed to have been a challenge because of our virtual environment, like what Gavin mentioned. However, this should not stop us from communicating more, because more than anything else, our employees need real-time communications and setting of direction so they don't lose the connection of how their work is contributing value to their organization's agenda. So keeping and maintaining a regular and timely evaluation also makes an employee understand where they stand at all times. So this will keep them abreast of where they are in terms of their own personal development as well. And when they know where they stand, it is but fair that we plan for their development, either to close any gaps or plan for development, knowing that they will be your key talents that you will have to keep. There's a need to build and establish a solid talent development framework. Otherwise, we may face the dilemma of disengagement because we cannot give them the development that they have planned for themselves. And lastly, keeping them engaged and connected to the organization, especially a lot are working from home, so the connection really must be there. And and there is less conversation, probably less interaction. So having an established culture is one important key in engaging employees. So this will always serve as your core to remind us of our whys. Why are we in this organization? Why do we believe that we are fit to belong in this organization, and so many other whys? So having an established culture will for sure address most of the challenges that we face today, because it gives us the sense of positivity that with the mindset, we are able to focus on certain set of values that attracts and retain employees, which in turn strengthen the relationship, not just within the organization, but with the customers, the community, and other partners as well.
Oh, thank you, Riza. Dan, over to you. If there are any elements that you really want to be able to add, I think Riza very aptly has spoken about the cultural aspect of it, the softer, the intangibles, and not just all the tangibles, because I do believe that in the new normal, the intangibles will far outnumber just the tangibles that we have always been used to in HR and technology.
Sandeep, just to add, good points from Gavin, from Riza, and really, if you're going to look at it post-pandemic, there are still things in principle that will be the same. Like, for example, investment in talent management, investment in employee engagement, etc. But to Gavin's point earlier, the approaches will be very different. Before, we used to do engagement face-to-face. Now we have to shift to YouTube Live, to Facebook Live, to different mediums to be able to continue to reach out to our employees. There's also change in the way we look at mental health. Before, when we look at wellness program, it's all about annual physical examination, etc. And this year, and pandemic, me personally, I saw the value of having an employee assistance program. For local companies who structurally doesn't have EAP, I've seen them, trying to create one for their own organizations. So the way we engage them, the way the mental wellness programs has been created in the past will be very different post-pandemic. Another factor to there is the pandemic planning, which is related to wellness programs. Before, when we planned for pandemic, we were just looking at TTB, usual flu. But now, all HR practitioners have seen how an international pandemic of its scale can disrupt all our personal lives. So that will change in the way we engage, the way we protect, and the way we create employee safety for our people. And the reality is, post-pandemic or during pandemic, not everyone are working from home. There are also organizations that are actually working on site. And there's another element there is making sure and guaranteeing employees coming on site that they are safe to go work on site. So that's a different element in terms of how we react to pandemic. But post-pandemic, there will be a lot of changes, wellness program, the way we develop people. And in fact, even motivation. Now, how do we define meaningful work now? Is meaningful work just working at the office, or meaningful work where we work from home and we are able to balance more time? Gavin's point of, I'll have a delivery of an appliance. It will take me 20 minutes. It requires me to be at home. Does it mean meaningful work for someone? So I think these are the things that will be considerations. And as we go post-pandemic, we will see more. It will continue to evolve. I think as different organizations and every HR leaders will continue to iterate, just to see what works for them post-pandemic.
Yeah. No, thank you, Dan. Very quickly, just on the second question, Gavin, changing a little track here. How are you seeing technology influence in markets like Philippines and other parts of Southeast Asia? Are we quite in sync with the pace of adoption and the transformation that we're seeing in the Western part of the world? Is it faster here, given that we are dealing with a relatively younger employee base? Just your very important take on the influence that we are seeing of the technology in this part of the world, and how does that set us up distinctive compared to the rest?
For my personal view is that we're faster here, in this part of the world. Particularly if you look at how sort of technology is adopted. You mentioned the young workforce and the generally younger sort of workforce in parts of Asia and Philippines particularly. That workforce is very susceptible and very open to new technology, very quick to adopt this technology, but because they use these things in their life. So what's strange is how you get such a gap between work technology and personal technology. Sandeep, if I wanted to invite you out for dinner and we're in the same city, which one day hopefully we are, in a personal way, I would just send you a WhatsApp message. I would just send you a WhatsApp, I would Viber, I would ping you on Facebook or whatever. I would use these very quick ways of chatting. But in the work situation, we would write an email, dear so-and-so, blah, 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 20. Why is it that way? Why is it that technology at work is very clunky and very cumbersome, and the technology we use in personal life is very quick, very easy to use and very easy to adapt? Even HR technology, you want to go and do something in Lazada to buy something or Shopee, it's click, click, click. You want to go and apply for your leave, it's this one, you're on the mouse, you've got to log on there, choose this, find this, where is it, calculate this. So work technology and personal technology has diverged. And what we're seeing now is it's coming together. The traits of technologies like Facebook and Twitter and Amazon and all of that, those sort of usability elements are coming into enterprise and workplace software. And PeopleStrong is a great example of this. People are now used to using those type of technologies like the Facebook and the Amazon and all of that in their personal life. So they can very quickly shift over to these new technologies. So I think to your point, the younger demographic of certain Asian countries is accelerating the adoption of these technologies, together with the things I mentioned earlier, like the pandemic, where we have no choice. So you have the younger people who are keen to adopt it. You have the older people who now have no choice but to adopt it because they can no longer do it through the traditional way. I will use an example without mentioning any names of several people in the organization, that when we used to have a Zoom meeting, it was a big affair. You had to book it for the secretary. We had help desk come along, had to go and set everything up. And, after 3 months, they realized that they have no EA anymore. They have no secretary. There's no help desk to come and fix it. They have to work it out themselves. They have to work out how to set up their camera, to set up their mic. They know how to, and they get it, and they get it in the end. So it has pushed adoption quite quickly. And I think that's really going for us in this part of the world, that the younger demographic is accelerating it, and then the older demographic who would normally resist the pandemic has pushed them to do it anyway. So it's a sort of perfect storm.
Yeah, no, great. And I think, Gavin, you bring up a great point. And with that, Riza, we are already seeing a confluence between work tech and consumer tech. In fact, at PeopleStrong, whenever we are constantly driving our inspiration from what is that we should actually present to our employees, because at the core, it's really an employee who is our customer, because that individual is the user. We are constantly mapping how is that person consuming many other technologies, either to go and buy something online, ranging from an article to a learning program, how currently education is being imparted online, how people are able to almost understand a persona of an employee or an individual. And why is that we're not able to do that effectively in our work environment? My understanding of every employee, with the aid of technology and now with artificial intelligence and machine learning, can be very, very precise. I can know exactly what do I need to serve on the learning platter to Riza, which is different from a Dan, because your career aspirations, the way you define growth is very distinctive. It will be wonderful if you can talk us through a little more about how is that this is actually being offered as a very, very personalized uh, element to the employees, or even if we have a vision around that, how will that really play out?
Well, Sandeep, technology is an important activity when we talk about innovation, especially within the business today. So it may bring about greater impact on organization that exists in a dynamic environment, especially now that we are mostly working in a virtual environment. So definitely technology can lead us to a greater efficiency and effectiveness in HR. So we've been talking about, this is the new normal, and I would start from hiring. So hiring now can't be facilitated without the use of technology. So from the use of job portals on the internet to search the best candidates out there, because I don't think anyone would be brave enough to go outside and hire for their A talent. So the hiring process has been made effective with the use of the internet, as many people come to know of opportunities, and hence increases the probability of hiring efficient employees. Even interviews and assessments are now mostly done online, and having a reliable technology will provide a better recruiting experience to both candidates and recruiters. So the advancement of technology today means that company can use the latest innovations such as machine learning to screen resumes and even augmented reality to onboard new employees, because we need to establish relationship and introduce culture. So another influence that I can think of is on data management and analysis. So with the data management done online, and there are many available tools and help that is available, it increases the efficacy and effectiveness of our data. So employees' performance data can now be analyzed and monitored. An example is, a performance management and career planning tool that can monitor performance, development, and the employee's talent profile. So with the availability of tools like this, we are able to set a meaningful career experience to employees and providing the organization a clear picture on how to improve retention, evaluate turnover rates, and eventually help possible future development challenges. So I'd say technology plays a big part also in automation. So HR has a very complex domain that involves a lot of processes. And admittedly, we tend to focus on too many administrative tasks that we tend to miss looking after more meaningful activities that we can do, such as career conversations and providing better career experience to employees. So the inclusion of technology into the HR workflow frees us from a generally routine type of work. When we automate processes or even introduce bots today, this allows us to eliminate paperwork, speed up the execution of many tasks, and contributes to a more efficient HR performance. However, we should always remember that while we have this technology, we in HR should not lose the sense of empathy. We still need to drive our employees' experience with, of course, our heart to care for them.
No, I think that's so beautifully summed up, and I think like a quaint HR leader bringing in empathy, a high touch with high tech becomes even that much more important. Dan, there has been a lot of conversation, and we've kind of heard this when Gavin spoke, we heard this when Riza spoke, around talent analytics, right? Which is fundamentally a lot of disparate data points on individuals that we can process in a manner that we can understand his or her pattern, uh, what is that they're really expecting, and so on and so forth. In many ways, it is a massive shift in culture where now we are looking at much more of internal data points of our employees as opposed to just relying on the market benchmark. Uh, how have you looked at some of the very progressive companies like Amazon that you have worked in? Can you share with us a good live case study of how can we, in this part of the world, learn a lot more from how talent analytics would have delivered a very competitive edge to a company like an Amazon?
Yeah, sure. One, of course, in Amazon, it's a buzzword, scale. So when I joined Amazon in 2018, we were about 600,000 employees globally. When I left Amazon 2 weeks ago, they were 1.3 million. So just imagine to do talent management for that scale is very different from you do and look at talent management for maybe 100 or 200 employees. So the analytics really has to be very strong, from a platform perspective, how you gather data, how you process data, how do you anticipate those needs of the organization when you say, we're going to grow like this. There are new country launches like this. Where do we get those talents? Where do we get this within Amazon, or we can get this externally? And each points as if they're just a click away from the tool. So it really creates a lot of uh, opportunities, in terms of both from a business outcome perspective, managers being able to make quick decisions of what type of capabilities are they, do they have in terms of, do we have this already, etc. And then externally, of course, you still look at it from a benchmarking standpoint, but you only look externally when those things are very new. Very recently in the news, Amazon is looking at cryptocurrency. They're not yet accepting, but that's a news. But if they're going to look at it at the 1.3 million, I doubt if they're going to see an expert in cryptocurrency because it's not a business that they are in currently. So immediately, what type of capabilities, competencies do they need? If you have very good talent analytics, you'll immediately get it. So for country launches, whether it's logistics, fulfillment, customer service, AWS, easily they can get that across the world within Amazon. And mind you, despite of them being able to be available internally, there's still a lot of external talents that we need to do, simply because the business is continuously scaling. And I think that's the point here, is the scale of having a talent analytics. If you don't have that, that will be a very difficult conversations within senior management team.
Yeah, no, thank you, Dan. And I can tell you and the rest of the audience that one element that actually makes some of these organizations very, very distinctive. In fact, there are quite a few great examples of enterprises in this part of the world as well, Southeast Asia, where business decisions are taken basis data as opposed to basis and data internally of the company versus basis what's the sentiment and what's the market trend. Because one of the ways that you can be ahead of the innovative curve is if you were to hear your employees a lot more than just look at what is the market trend. So a benchmark can actually be a great recipe to kill any innovation because you will constantly be a follower, as opposed to if you get a lot more focus on talent analytics, it might lead you to an evidence to make an introduction of something new in your company, and you might just be the first one to doing that. And that is what helps you engage and win the talent war that we will constantly be in, because high quality talent is always going to be a very, very scarce commodity in our respective businesses. Really coming to the last point, we obviously engaged a lot with enterprises like yourselves and many others when we started to build our talent operating system. We just believe that we should not get our clients to look at performance in isolation of learning, learning in isolation of career and succession, and so on and so forth. I'm really, I guess, more as a future forward kind of a question, Gavin, putting this forward to you. If you were to really build your own operating system for your enterprise, let's say for Ayala Corporation, what would be that one element that you would suggest we nurture the most to make it a lot more future ready in the world that we are currently living in and we will continue to step and evolve in?
You know, you've mentioned it earlier, and I would say it's a personalized employee experience. If you look back at 5 years ago and 7 years ago, everyone was talking about CX, customer experience, and we realized a while ago that you can't treat every customer the same. You have to tailor the experience to a customer. A disgruntled customer, you have to deal with in a very different way than a happy customer. A frequent customer, you deal in a very different way to a customer who's never purchased from you before, and such like. So there was a realization X number of years ago, and that's spurred the CX and the movement into CRM, customer relationship management, and the growth in companies like Salesforce and various other stuff who have looked at building customer platforms and developing platforms to provide tailorized customer and tailorized marketing experience for customers. Fast forward to today, and we're realizing that the same thing needs to happen for employees. The employees are humans in the same way that customers are humans. They want a tailored employee experience, not a generic employee experience. So you know, to answer briefly, as I know I've been talking a lot, I would say it's around personalization, around making sure that the operating system, the platform in the future can provide a personalized employee experience, unique to different employees, progression in the organization, their performance, their mood, you know, their level of engagement, and tailor that experience like we do, or like we have done a few years ago when we started looking at customers' experience on the external.
No, thank you, Gavin, and that's a good validation for, I guess, the bets that we've essentially taken in building our talent OS. Riza, your inputs on that?
I totally agree with Gavin. You know, in Telos International Philippines, we believe in establishing a strong culture value chain. So this has been a proven formula where a strong corporate culture and employee engagement equate to the ability to innovate, achieve higher customer satisfaction, and ultimately deliver a strong financial performance. So it's also our foundation of everything that we deliver, including proof of our ability to replicate, to sustain, and even enhance our brand in an outsourced model. So what does a culture value chain mean to us? So first, it's really on building a strong corporate culture foundation. So these are the beliefs and behaviors that define how employees interact with each other, with customers, and even to our communities. We want our team members to be involved and be part of something bigger that allows us to provide opportunities to give back. We believe that great cultures surround employees with the things that matters. This team engagement is another part of our culture value chain. Engaging our team member both personally and professionally, as we put its high focus on talent development. So next is our attrition. So when people are connected to the work that they do each day, they stick around to build their careers in the organization. We also look into we also look into the customer innovation where our tenured, engaged employees take customer ownership and are capable of the design thinking required for innovation. This will lead to an improved customer experience, as shared by Gavin, where we empower our creative team members to delight the customers and improve and improve metrics. So we want to make sure that we're driving better customer outcomes. Our team members, sorry. All right. So our team members are our expert brand ambassadors, delivering better customer outcomes. When this equation exists, business growth follows. So in our culture value chain, we believe that it indeed supports the talent mandate, that it focuses entirely about the talent. So we strive to drive the employee experience forward to the new level. There is such a strong link amongst talent management, engagement, and business results. This is the reason that even at the time of pandemic, our engagement score remained high, similar to a pre-pandemic results that we had in 2020.
No, that is absolutely fantastic. Again, I'm just risking by assuming that personalization is quite critical on your agenda as well. But my follow-up question to that is, how do you personalize it to your organization culture? You can personalize it to an employee and his or her requirements, but how do you personalize it to the enterprise culture, which is actually what sets a bank unique from other 5 banks, e-commerce organization distinctive from other 5 e-commerce organizations? Like, where do we prioritize here?
Yeah, well, for maybe I can speak for an experience in Amazon where we really hinge on very simple terms. The vision statement of Amazon is to be the Earth's most customer-centric organization. Simple as that. And then now before 14 leadership principles, now it's 16 leadership principles, and all the bar raising concepts of Amazon are hinged on those 16 leadership principles. So every time that we develop our talent programs, it's always been anchored on those 16 leadership principles: bias for action, customer obsession, dive deep, ownership, think big. Everyone can Google that and be able to see what are those 16 leadership principles of Amazon. And they have hinged all the talent programs based on leadership principles. But there's also other things, like, for example, we have a tenet in Amazon, good intentions doesn't work, mechanisms do. So in fact, that's all embedded in a talent analytics or a talent operating system. Because if you don't create mechanisms, it will not happen. Conversations will not happen. Career conversations will not happen. So you have to create those mechanisms so those talent programs are actually working for you. So that's also part of our principles of scaling. So in Amazon terms, it's really based on the 16 leadership principles and a lot of tenets. Probably you have heard always day one in Amazon. It's always been what Jeff Bezos has always been articulating in all the new hire orientation. It's always day one. Things that you can do today, do it now, because that's part of innovation. So that's how we have in Amazon talent management has been created.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think all 3 of you have really been very, very candid. I've been looking at some of the questions which have essentially been pouring into the chat window. There is one very interesting one. I think some of them we've been able to address in our conversation. One interesting one that essentially came in was, in this entire transformation, what's the agenda, if at all, for the HR shared services model? There is a lot of prevalence of global shared services in countries like India, Philippines. Like, what's your take on the future of some of these models? If at all they have to pivot differently, any one of you could actually take it up. Whoever has spent a lot of time in understanding the shared services.
Maybe to briefly comment, I mean, HCX offers managed services, particularly around managed payroll services as a shared service organization. I guess the original intent, maybe before my time when we set up, you know, a good 10, 15 odd years ago, was to become a true shared service center. But the challenge for that is the diversity of the organizations within the conglomerates and the direction which everybody goes on makes shared services become very difficult. And if you look at what we've discussed today, when it comes to, you know, hyper accelerating HR and the employee experience, it's difficult to do that in a shared service center. I think our direction would be shared services is useful for some of those back-end processing. So things like payroll, for example, where you just need it to be processed correctly and it's a back-end function. Shared services has a good model to be able to form there. It can reduce overheads, it can reduce some economies of scale, some economies of systems, etc. So things like payroll, for example, is a good example of where I think shared services can work, but fully HR shared services is a difficult model to adopt. And if you do that, especially across a conglomerate like Ayala, which is very diverse across its nature, then I think you lose some of that personalization you need by having HR embedded within the organizations. And many of them, of course, have different cultures and different requirements. So our direction is shared services, but only for the sort of back-end processing side of it, not from the value add front end.
Yeah, no, wonderful. I think that's well articulated. Anything from you, Riza and Dan, that you wanted to add on this particular point?
Yeah, just to add on that, Sandeep, I think the beauty of the shared services is utility. You know, you put processes in the shared services that are standardized, less complex, because it becomes complex, it becomes more difficult to create utility. And to Gavin's point, the only possible hindrance for shared services, particularly for those who are operating in different countries, will be the complexities of laws. Possibly culture, the way they utilize shared services, and the way the process is designed. And that sometimes when we move a process to a shared service model, sometimes you have to tweak it a little bit, because if it's too complex, it's too difficult to create scale.
Yeah, I just feel the entire terminology of HR shared services will be recoined. It will be less of HR shared services, and maybe if it really has to rightly pivot, it will be more about employee excellence centers, because ultimately you're not serving the HR department, you're fundamentally trying to service an employee. And I do believe that the need to assist them with technology will dramatically change the expectations, the operating structure. It's going to be less people intensive, and it's going to be a lot more technology incentive, which is really what gets them a very disparate data point on every individual, so that they can be a lot more customized in how we really want to be able to be their talent coach during the entire process, rather than just focus on the transactions. To what Gavin said, I guess even that is going to be taken over more and more by elements around RPA, rather than just the humans processing those claims or operational parts of the managed services. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think this has been a very, very invigorating conversation with three very eminent leaders. We couldn't really have asked for more than an hour from these exceptionally busy individuals. So thank you so much, Gavin, Riza, and Dan. Thank you for your candor and for laying a lot of those stories with some very real life examples that you're seeing in your respective enterprises and many other companies around you. I do hope this has been of use to all of our audience, and a big thank you to PMAP. I do want to apologize that we tried our best in this 1 hour to take care of as many questions as we can that popped up in the chat window, but several of them were not responded. So apologies for that. There's always going to be a bit of a constraint on time, but continue with the dialogue, because one thing that I can tell you, in the new normal, anyone who believes that we figured it all is going to be the first one to actually fall into that ditch. So keep it evolving and keep it at a very, very learning and a collaborating level, so that we can certainly build for a significantly better and a more secure future. Thank you, and I appreciate this opportunity to moderate such a fantastic panel.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.